It's not a Spider-Man movie. This only takes away from Peter's character. That is not Spider-Man. Okay, this needs to be addressed. What's up YouTube, my name is Gio, and a couple weeks ago I made a video expressing my thoughts on Spider-Man Far From Home. And needless to say, many of you had your own opinions and let me know about them. And thank you for that. Pretty much all of you were very respectful in the comments and did a great job of laying out your points. I'm going to be shouting out and responding to those comments at the end of the video, so stay tuned till the end to see me respond to your comments and hopefully better explain some of my points I made in the video. Yes, a lot of my issues with Far From Home hasn't changed, but these comments showed me that I screwed up on one big point. That being that I didn't give the movie a lot of praise that it did deserve. Because of how hard I went at the movie, a lot of the stuff I said that I liked about it ended up taking a back seat. Probably because I only said I liked the movie twice, then proceeded to tear it a new one. So I'm here to make things
balanced, as all things should be.
This is because while I don't like this movie as a Spider-Man movie, as a sequel to Endgame, it's damn near perfect. It helps set up the post-Endgame world, the future of the MCU, and how the actions of our past heroes are going to play a role in that. But let's quit rambling on and get into why Spider-Man Far From Home is the perfect Endgame sequel.
I'm here in St. Marco Polo.
Look, I know people have problems with how lightly the movie takes the events that happened in Endgame, like the snap and the death of our childhood heroes. But after the ass beating my heart has taken after Avengers Endgame and Arrow's Season 7 finale, I need something light and fun. And Far From Home is fun. The movie isn't laugh out loud hysterical, but it does make me smile and chuckle, which is all I needed to do. It picks you up from the downer that was Endgame before we really get into Peter's head and see what he's going through. We get to see Peter and his class just try to be normal teenagers in this insane post-Endgame world. Speaking of that world,
are you going to step up or not?
Far From Home has the tall task of showing us what the world is like after our heroes have passed, and that's able to be done so well because of the setting. Having the plot take place on a class trip around several countries is actually genius. It allows us to get an insight of the state of the world. How after Tony, Steve, and Natasha's death, the world is constantly looking for new heroes to fill that void. When Mysterio shows up to defeat Hydro Man, everyone is open to accept them as the world's new superhero, and maybe the new Iron Man. This is an insane contrast to how the world saw heroes years prior with the Sokovia Accords, and even as far back as Iron Man 2. This helps establish that there is a power vacuum in the world that needs to be filled by other heroes. This movie also helps to show us the state of the Avengers by having Nick Fury tell Peter that he is their only option. And while we're on the topic of Peter,
go back on my trip with the girl who I really like and tell her how I feel. MJ, I am Spider-Man.
Okay, I kinda gave Tom Holland's Peter Parker a lot of crap in my last Far From Home video. Mainly because the character that was written for him doesn't feel like Spider-Man to me. However, he kills it in this movie as this version of Peter. You can tell that he's giving it his all. And you know what? As a sequel to Endgame and a continuation of this version of Peter Parker, his story is done very well. You can really feel that he wants to do the right thing, but so much has been thrown at him as of late that he just wants to be a normal teenager for one day. I also love his relationship with almost everyone in the movie and how it plays into his character. His chemistry with MJ is great, and I love how they both use a mask as a way to seem confident. For Peter, it's the literal action of putting on the Spider-Man mask. He becomes more quippy and sure of himself, but he still can't seem to tell his crush how he feels. And with MJ, we get the mask of confidence through her sarcastic and deadpan attitude. She uses it to hide her insecurities and leaves the door open for the MCU to show how her home life could have led to this attitude. A home where she learned that words have power and showing too much emotion is a weakness, which led her to using this sarcasm as a coping mechanism and can lead to some amazing moments with her and Peter. Someone who used a mask to feel powerful, even when he has lost so much. It also makes a lot of sense that Peter is so open to give Mysterio Edith. After the loss of his mentor figure in Uncle Ben, Tony showed up almost instantly to take up that position, to teach Peter and make him a better man. And now with him gone, Peter doesn't want to fall into that state of loss and loneliness again. So the moment Mysterio shows up to the scene and starts to connect with him, Peter is more likely to trust him, and it hits harder when he finds out that he was played. Also, Peter's relationship with Happy is at its peak in this movie. I really like how towards the end of the movie, Happy is the first person he thinks to call when he is stranded, and opens up to him about his insecurities, about being the next big hero. Peter finally got used to being the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and now has the pressure of everyone expecting him to step up and be the next Iron Man. And on a side note, I personally don't like how many parallels there are between Tony and Peter towards the end of this movie, but it does play beautifully into the story and the future that the MCU is trying to set up. Now this is a new generation of heroes, and many are going to have to take their mentors' roles, but learn to do things their own way. Which brings me to my final reason why this is a perfect sequel to Endgame.
I don't think Tony would have done what he did if he didn't know that you were going to be here after he was gone.
One of the big themes in Spider-Man Far From Home is the idea of legacy, how you take what you learned from the previous generations and use it to better yourself. The way they convey legacy in this movie is how it mirrors the original Iron Man in the sense of what it needs to accomplish, that being setting up the world we are going to be following for God knows how many years. While in Iron Man, Tony did affect the world a lot throughout the movie, probably the most game-changing moment is the line,
I am Iron Man.
You get to see a similar moment in Far From Home, where the Daily Bugle tells the world that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And while I'm not a fan of this reveal in the movie, I do love the contrast between these two scenes. In Iron Man, this moment leads Tony Stark being revered in the public eye and becomes an even bigger celebrity than what he already was. In Far From Home, this moment is something Peter needs to worry about, because he is also being framed for Mysterio's death, someone who people thought would be the next Iron Man. This puts Peter in a tricky situation. He's now a menace in the public eye and will need to figure out a way to convince the world that he is not Spider-Man. This also sets up the world to not be as open to accepting Spider-Man, which if done correctly can lead to some very touching stories. Also, I liked how the post-credit scenes in both movies were Nick Fury showing the audience a part of the world that was even bigger than we imagined. In Iron Man, it's the new world of heroes, and in Far From Home is the cosmic side of the MCU, which could be getting set up during Phase 4. Spider-Man Far From Home had a lot to do in one movie, and managed to do most of it very well. As an MCU movie and set up for Phase 4, it's damn near perfect. It's just a pretty solid movie overall. While making this video, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't doubling back on my original thoughts, because the point I wanted to make is that whether you like or dislike a movie, if you change the perspective you're watching the movie from, it could lead you to have a completely different opinion. That is what's beautiful with any kind of art, is that there's so many ways you can interpret something. There's no right or wrong answer, just a certain point of view. As a Spider-Man movie, Far From Home just doesn't sit right with me, and may never will. But as a continuation of Endgame, and set up the Phase 4 of the MCU, Far From Home is a damn good sequel. Anyway, I do hope you guys did enjoy the video, and like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm going to be reading through some of the comments from my last Spider-Man Far From Home video, and hopefully apply to them to better express my points that I made in that video. Alright, we're going to start off with the ones that disagree with me. I think the first step to enjoying and understanding the MCU's version of Spider-Man is to stop comparing it to the Raimi films and their Spider-Man. After all, it was Stan Lee that said Tom Holland was the most comic book accurate. Okay, but the Guardians of the Galaxy are nothing like the comics, and people like them. And the directors can change them if they want, like Guardians of the Galaxy and Peter Tingle. Some people like it, some people don't, and to the great power and great responsibility line is because his Uncle Ben in this movie is Iron Man. I'm not saying the Uncle Ben doesn't exist. Also, I saw the Raimi movies like 2 times for each movie. And also, I'd like to hear your opinion. I see where you're coming from, but you're pretty off base, pretentious, and pedantic here. Pedantic? I'll look that up later. I want to preface this by saying that this version of Spider-Man, not being similar to past versions in terms of money trouble and whatnot, isn't a sin as you suggested. Itself is a meaningless term popularized by an idiot who built an empire on meaningless vapid criticism, but rather an interchangeable element of a character who is defined by hardship. MA isn't needed in a story to teach Peter a lesson. There are plenty of other mentor characters who can fill that role. You mostly pulled that from the Sam Raimi trilogy anyway. Plenty of characters in the Sam Raimi movies know Peter's secret identity. There's a Mr. Sunday's movies video covering all the current, that time, Spidey films that show people who definitely know Spider-Man's secret identity, and a sizable chunk of them come from the first trilogy. Did you forget the scene early on the cafeteria where Peter catches MJ in a completely unbelievable manner? Or when he accidentally webs up a tray and pulls it across the floor in front of hundreds of people? or when he does an absurd backflip in his fight against Flash, or when a bunch of people see him unmasked in the back room of a boxing arena, or when he loses his mask on a train. On top of that, his friends not knowing his secret identity is pretty laughable in those movies, considering how many obvious tells there are. Even from a character perspective and not the audience, Peter's identity is unimportant in these films because it's generally unimportant, especially in the MCU. That's why his identity being revealed in the post-credit scene in Far From Home doesn't matter. To be honest, secret identities are a relic of the past at this point. The celebration of superheroes have made it make more sense for people to revel themselves instead of hiding their identities. This all comes to a head in the idea of personal responsibility. Peter is a child and wants some small piece of his life to not be controlled by his identity as a superhero. He has not forgotten responsibility or his uncle or anything like that. He just wants a brief reprieve, I'm assuming that means rest, after all the shenanigans and tragedy that he had to suffer, first from the death of his uncle, himself, and then Tony, and he is punished for that. That's the whole point of the film. Oh my god. He trusts someone because he wants to evade personal responsibility, and he empowers a psychopath. The idea that one could watch this movie and somehow deprive that it betrays the character by being incredibly true to the character is nonsense. I generally like your stuff, but I thought this was pretty bad. Marvel is giving us superheroes in a modern world where secret identities are harder to keep and where no one beforehand has kept theirs, or even tried. It started this with I Am Iron Man at the beginning of the franchise. As for him abdicating his responsibilities, he is a kid who just fought an intergalactic war. He wants to summer off for at least 2 weeks. What's more is the others are clearly handling it, which goes into the whole arc of him wanting someone to replace Tony Stark in his life and then realizing that he must do it. Maybe it wasn't Spider-Man for you, but I thought it was the best Spider-Man movie ever, and nothing in this video came close to convincing me otherwise, particularly because you were a bit hysterical. I'm assuming that's what that word's supposed to be. I also like to shout out a lot of the positive comments I got during this video. Okay, now that I read through the comments, let me give you guys my response. To start off, let's go with the minor things. For one, the way I act in my videos it's amped up. Like, I'm not actually legitimately be like, this is the worst thing ever. Like I said, I actually think Spider-Man Far From Home is a damn good movie. It's just when I record these videos, I want to add a lot more of my personality. So what I end up doing is I just end up amping up how I would normally talk into the mic, because that's kind of more accurate to how I am in real life. What can I say? I'm energetic. And about the Stan Lee point from the beginning, look, I'm not going to disagree with the man himself. He made the character. However, I think a point to realize is that unfortunately, Stan Lee passed before Far From Home came out. And I'm pretty sure Marvel didn't give him a previous screening or the script or something that he could read through. So my best assumption is that when Stan Lee said this, it was when Homecoming was out, Civil War, and Infinity War. And if that's the case, that makes a lot of sense. I love Tom Holland's version of Peter Parker in those movies. I think he's great. It's just in this movie to where I start to have a little problems with him. Just not major problems, just ones where I stop for a second and I'm like, that doesn't sit right with me. But the main point of contention that I've noticed is 2 points. The Uncle Ben point and the secret identity point. Let's start with the secret identity point. The thing is, secret identities work with some characters, but I can understand why they don't work with others. Like in Iron Man, his character doesn't change because people know that Tony Stark's Iron Man. But with Peter Parker, I feel like you need that separation between Peter Parker's life and Spider-Man's life. And I think that's done the best when he has that secret identity. Not having him walk down the road and people be like, hey, you're Spider-Man, what's up? And I'm not saying that Marvel can't turn this into a great story. By any means, I think they could turn it into a great one. It's just, I'm a bit skeptical with it. And I don't know, it doesn't sit right with me that Peter Parker has his identity out there. And I feel like they are going to fix that in the next movie, but for now, this is just my thoughts. And with the Uncle Ben thing, I didn't need him in this movie. I don't need Uncle Ben in any movie. My main problem, like I said, was the idea of the great power and the great responsibility. I feel like he should have learned that after Uncle Ben's death. Not with Tony or whatever. I feel like after Uncle Ben's death, that's when Peter learns that line. So he should never run away from danger again. And so all they have to do, literally, the only thing, if I could change one thing about Far From Home, it would be this. That when Nick Fury goes to Peter and says, look, you are our only option. Peter thinks it over and is just you know what? I'll do it. But I still have to be on this school trip. I can't just go missing. So I hope you've got that covered to help me out or something. That's it. That's all I need is for Peter just to accept it after Nick Fury just goes look, you're our only option. Doesn't take away anything from the movie, and it just helps me feel a little bit more like, okay, even after all this crap is happening to Peter, he's still trying to do the right thing. Yeah, just that's just my 2 cents. Like, personally for me, I don't need Uncle Ben in any of these Spider-Man movies. Like, maybe later on down the line, but I don't need him right now. I really don't. I just want his sentiment to be present, if you will, if that makes any sense. Anyway, no fancy outro for this video because this is a long ass video, but I do hope you did enjoy it. Tell me in the comment section below if you think Spider-Man Far From Home is the perfect Endgame sequel, and if you don't just tell me why you don't think so. So I reply to every comment down there, and I can't wait to see what you guys comment. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed, and I will talk to you all later. Peace. Okay, finally. It's done. I've restored balance. Now, let's see how my last video did. Oh, god damn it!